So, as I'm walking here, I'm going to give you an introduction to this biography series that I've just done. It's long. I don't think it's all that interesting, so I'm just going to smash it all together and not edit it too much. And if you think it's interesting, that's great. Probably push that little button down below, and it'll do the artificial intelligence summary thing. That's probably the best way to get all this information. It's rambly and long, but a couple people have been asking for it, so what am I going to do? I'm just going to give it to you. So this is the story of how I got to where I am, with some edits. You know, you can ask for more details, and maybe I'll send them in an email or what have you. But with that, here you go. Enjoy. I hope that when people watch my channel, although it's mine and I run it and I put my stuff up, and all of the way I've come to understand the Buddha Dharma is only through this bag of skin and bones, I don't want this all to be self-serving. So I'm going to go into this cautiously, and I hope you understand that as I share my personal story, none of this is about me. But maybe you can listen to this and feel like you can get some identity with my lived experience, and maybe that inspires you to do some more zazen. Everyone should sit more. It's good for you. It's good for the world. With that, let's get into it. So, in the very beginning, I was 9 years old. I grew up in a very countryside area in the Midwest, not unlike where Clark Kent grew up, but I'm not Superman. I like Superman, but not, you know. Anyway, I grew up in the Midwest, and most days when I came home from school, I had a whole bunch of brothers and sisters, but a big gap between my older sister and my younger sister. So there were 9 years above me and 9 years below me. So there was a period where I was kind of alone at home, and siblings were all kind of off being adults, and then the young one was not yet born, or was born and was in daycare, so I didn't have to deal with her at home. She wasn't being a kid running around. So I get home from school, Mom and Dad were both off at work still. I come home and sit in the most quiet situation you could imagine. Cars were so rare, even. Occasionally you'd hear one driving by, off in the distance. Sometimes you'd hear an airplane. Somehow or another, it was a magically quiet place. And I found myself in this pattern of getting home from school and just sitting in the silence, because something cool happened. It was free and empty, and I found that fascinating. I did it every day for it seemed like a couple of years, from maybe 8 to 10, somewhere in that age area. I did a lot of just sitting. And I learned that I didn't need to try very hard. In fact, not trying was the way to do it. I arranged my body and I sat up straight so that I didn't have to use my body to hold myself up, so that I could just be still. And I realized that if I ate snacks when I came home from school, I would have this sort of jittery energy, or I would eat too much and I would feel sleepy. I didn't want either of that, so I didn't eat snacks. So I'd get home and just be there. If I just sat, something cool happened. I could see everything. Not what I thought it was. I could just see everything. I had some weird visual experiences, as one does if you just stare. Your eyes kind of get like overexposed, like a camera. And things get wide and shifty and stuff. And you could think that that's sort of a weird kind of psychedelic realm or whatever. I think there's a much more simple physical explanation. But even in that time, I saw that. And I knew I could get to that sort of space. And it was interesting to me. And then I recognized that I could go beyond that space. And that was even more interesting. And then one day, I remember very distinctly sitting and facing a really large picture window. No cars, a few birds kind of bumping around, and there were trees outside that window, and I saw a ripple pass across my vision from right to left. And then I heard a big boom. And in the gap between the ripple, like the whole house seemed to like do this wave. This wave just passed through the whole structure of the home that I grew up in. And before I heard the boom, I was sharp enough to go, why did that just happen? And be very curious. And then the boom happened. It wasn't so loud that it scared me, but I recognized it was a quarry down the way, a few miles away, or kilometers for you folk, perhaps 3-4 kilometers away. And they were probably exploding dynamite or something to loosen up the rocks in the quarry. And I recognized that the wave that came through the house was something from the explosion, and that what that triggered in me was understanding that even my home was impermanent, though it had existed long before me and may perhaps exist after me. It too is just barely standing up. And maybe I'm also just barely standing up. And the trees outside are just barely standing up. And the grass comes and goes. It would die in the winter, or appear to die. It turns brown. And that was very interesting. Somehow that stuck with me. That was the beginning of kind of seeing it. And because of that experience, I got more interested in sitting more. And at some point, I thought it would be interesting to tell someone. I tried to tell one of my friends at school, and I don't remember who it was, but I mentioned it kind of loosely, and they just looked at me like, what? And basically made fun of me and told me I was weird. And so I said, maybe I'm weird. And I've always thought, maybe I'm weird, ever since. And then from that time, I didn't tell anyone about what I did, what my practice. I didn't call it. I didn't think of it as a practice. It was just something I did, sitting still and quiet and not thinking too much, not needing to think too much. It worked great from 8 to 10-ish because there are not so many hormones driving desire. So I think there were a lot of variables that just made that the perfect time to find myself sitting still that way. Fast forward sometime during my 10th year, my family moved to Malaysia, to Kuala Lumpur. And there, I had a lot of free time. I also did the sitting still, and I enjoyed doing it at night. I enjoyed doing it during the day. I enjoyed sitting in strange places that were calm and quiet and nobody was around. It's a big city in Kuala Lumpur, so there were always lots of people that you could hear. And that also, and crazy animals, of course. Malaysia's tropical. It's full of wild things. That was also really fun to experience in that quiet space, from that quietness. And then someday, so I was driving around with my family and looked out a taxicab window, and I saw a group of people with shaved heads, wearing orange clothes, carrying a big bowl. And I remember, and they were walking barefoot. I remember thinking, I don't know what that is, but something about that felt like me. Like I saw something that just felt like, oh, hey, those are my people. And it didn't say anything at that time, but the image and the feeling of, there it is, stuck with me ever since. And that's kind of a weird, hey, I said weird again. It was a kind of a special thing that stuck. That, I think, now, from, I'm a monk now, I look back at that time, was this person seeing Dharma, and then seeing one of the Buddha's disciples for the first time. And that pointed me in a direction that I was never able to shake, and led me to today. Stay tuned for the next chapter. Oh, look. Don't poop on my camera. Oh, these red trees are great, aren't they? Look how red this is. This is so red. Who doesn't like red trees? People who like green trees maybe don't like red trees. That's not the point at all. Nanka ochita? Ano boru? Or episode 2 in the biography. So I'm going to try to make this short. I'm not good at making things short, have you noticed? So here's the story. I went to college in a big jazz school in the American South. And while I was there, I worked on cruise ships. That was really fun and a really strange social bubble to get involved in. While I was working on cruise ships, I met a man who was a dancer from New Zealand, and he like took the ship of me and just went face that way, you know, and then a little wind and in my sails and set me off. And I really credit that person, that encounter with that person, as the source point of my whole spiritual adventure, which might say a lot by this point. By 40 years old and living in another country and having become a disciple of the Buddha. And anyway, this guy noticed that I wasn't using my body well, and he pointed me at my own body. And he said, why don't you pay attention to that? You can do this, you can do that, and taught me some yoga, encouraged me to pay attention as I exercise, and then I went nuts. I became a barefoot runner. And I still like to run barefoot. I don't run that much these days. I don't have that much time, but I do enjoy touching the earth with my bare feet. And I also enjoy people thinking I'm nuts when I do it, because usually, you know, most places where I am, people wear shoes. In Japan, it's called a shitsure. It's a sort of a rude thing to do to run around barefoot, because you probably go inside your own home or someone else's home where you take off your shoes so that you keep the floors clean. But if your feet are touching the ground outside that you would typically wear shoes to protect your feet from so that the inside stays clean, well, you're just tracking dirt in, right? Well, come on. Who doesn't wash their feet? Give me a break. Even Jesus did that. So, yeah, I became a barefoot runner, and I spent the several years of my, the latter part of my college years in Texas, just barefoot, getting a lot of looks, even from my professors and other professors in the school and the grocery stores and all that stuff. But I was pretty cool with being thought of as weird, because I had always been thought of as weird. Somehow, in that study, in touching the earth, I developed this sort of weird sensitivity about life. And I also became a vegan, which is well, you know, 40-year-old me and 20-year-old me might get in a fight about it, but yeah, just so it goes, you know, when you grow up, you get a different perspective, right? Then I moved back to Chicago. Hey, over there. It was much colder. I had to wear shoes a little bit more often in Chicago. And then also had to wear shoes on gigs and stuff as a musician. So, well, you know, I tried as much as I could not to wear just black socks and whatnot. It worked out fairly well. One of the things that really helped in my life was my weirdness at that point made me unafraid of talking to people. I'm still kind of not afraid of talking to people. So I met someone who we didn't know at the beginning, but turned out to be a relative of mine, a cousin of sorts, and she studied religions and pointed me at Buddhism. She said, you know, I just took this Buddhism class. I think you might be a Buddhist. And I said, oh, no, that's cliche. A barefoot running, hippie-minded vegan guy? No. That's too cliche. I can't go there. Can't do that. That'd be too much. That's too much. Well, she dragged me, thankfully, straight into a Buddhist temple. And it was a Pure Land temple, which was mentioned in the Muho video. And I thought it was strange. We sat in chairs, we sang songs, there was a piano. I like the piano, but I thought that didn't fit my image of Buddhism or whatever. Nor did I thought there would be like meditation, the whole typical what do you think of Buddhism thing. It turned out that that's not what it was at all. What ended up being was Pure Land Buddhism, which is studying the Pure Land Sutras, the teachings of Honin and Shinran Shonin, and a whole lot of Dharma study. Actually, that was really cool and really wonderful to study the understanding of what the Pure Land means and how to practice being reborn in the Pure Land, how to recite the Nembutsu, that's intoning Namu Amida Butsu. And some other sutras too. At that temple, we also chanted the Heart Sutra, which was cool. You should watch my Heart Sutra video if you haven't seen that one. Inside that temple, I kept going because I thought this is weird. I don't understand what this is. It kind of feels like Protestant Christianity. Maybe I need to hang out for a little bit more in order to figure out what it is. I was right. That's true. I definitely needed to stay and figure out what it was. And while I did that, I found myself becoming the janitor. And I was cleaning the toilets and cleaning the floors. And I ended up living really close. So the ministers gave me a key so I could go there anytime. I would often go and do cleaning after gigs because it was quiet and I could play a little of the trumpet inside the temple. And it wouldn't bother the neighbors at basically any hour in the night. And there's also a ping pong table, which was great. And stash a little nihonshu, a little sake in the refrigerator, and play ping pong and drink. Well, what can you say? I was a wily jazz musician. Maybe I'm still a wily jazz musician. Who knows? But I spent a couple of good years there, and somewhere in the middle of that, while I was cleaning one time, up to that point I really didn't understand what this Nembutsu thing was. I said it, I participated in the practice or what have you. But it was when I was cleaning and taking care of it, particularly the toilets, that it hit me. Oh, this is what it means to give yourself to something, like to the something beyond yourself, this community. And then I walked in from the toilet. I walked directly back into the main hall with the altar and looked at it and looked at Amida and said Nembutsu. I said Namu Amida Butsu, and I bowed and put my hands together, and not in that order. I put my hands together. I said Namu Amida Butsu, and then I bowed. And it's a classic moment where you have that sort of click. You got a little chill, and I was like, oh, this is the feeling. This is the tiny hint that I'm pointed in the right direction. Like, I suppose Christians might say that that's that moment that, like, God touches you. No, Buddha's dead, so there's no touching. But, encountering and studying and it coming to a head, coming to a kind of a focal point with a little bit of charge and then a spark. And yeah, I recognize that, yeah, I'm pretty much a Buddhist, always probably was. And that's when I connected back to, from chapter 1, I saw those monks in orange robes in Malaysia when I was a kid. So there was something to that. And as I continued to be a member of that temple, I was lightly exposed to a couple other traditions of Buddhism. I went to a Lao temple near where I grew up, out in the countryside outside of Chicago. strange that there was a Southeast Asian, a Theravada temple in the middle of nowhere, south of Rockford, Illinois. Go look at a map. Look at Rockford. That's nothing. Come on. That place I went to just to see what meditation was, and I got no explanation. The monks didn't speak any English or anything, and yet I went and sat with them a couple of times, and it struck me, this is it. This is the thing. Like, there's something in this. It's like, yes, there is the other power aspect of practicing Nembutsu, studying Amida's vow and the Pure Land idea. But then there's also this whole other, it's a whole new world, a new fantastic point of view, when you just sit right down and don't think too much. A new way of seeing the world comes to view. My cadence wasn't good, but you get the idea. Yeah, from there, I found myself through a twist of fate looking for graduate school, and I knew that I had to leave Chicago for a lot of reasons. An ex-wife would do that to you, wouldn't it? But then I knew that I needed to find a place with check out this tree. This tree's great. Pachong. Wait, let's do it this way. Look at that thing. It's beautiful. Can I get a good frame? There we go. So I knew that I needed to have a temple near wherever I was going to be studying more jazz, because although jazz was my trained profession for so many years up to that point, and it was the means by which I was going to move and exist in this new place, it was my spiritual inclination that was going to give my whole operation purpose. I walked around in Eugene, Oregon, like I said in the Muho interview, until I found a temple, and I happened to find a monk, and he was my own age, same age, and he was really developed in his study of Dharma and Buddhism, and I was so struck by him. Still dearly respect and consider him my senpai by all stretches. His teacher clearly influenced him heavily, and I thought, that guy is going to be my teacher. And so I became a member of the temple, the Zen temple there in Eugene. I wanted to become a monk. I didn't really know how to ask. I'm not really good at asking questions. It's just part of my personality. I just don't get it. They don't occur to me at the right time, and I definitely don't ever ask for things that I want or need. So yeah, I certainly wasn't going to beg, hey, will you make me a monk? Although I perhaps should have. That would have been better. If you want to become a monk, I recommend finding somebody you really respect and have a good connection to, and then ask them. Be frank. Go for it. And they'll say no. Ask them again. And then they'll say no. Ask them again. Just keep at it. Keep sitting, keep doing practice, keep asking them other questions, but also keep asking them for ordination. They'll probably come around. Your determination is a major part of why they would or would not accept you as their deshi, or their disciple. So I was there in Oregon, and then I quickly became a resident of that temple. Thank goodness for all the generosity and kindness and wisdom shared with me by that community. So near and dear to my heart. Unbelievable community. If you ever go to Eugene, Oregon, just do a Google search for Zen Temple. You'll find it. It's fantastic. Then, well, the talks became that I was going to become a monk, and that was cool. I was really excited about it. It felt like the right thing. Finished graduate school, got my master's degree in jazz. Very useful. Very, very useful. And then but I had student debt. I had a terrible, I still have some student debt, to be honest. But I had a really rough time trying to figure out, how am I going to make this work? And the abbot of that temple he came up with this idea that I should just get a job and work and pay it off as much as I can before my ordination, and then before I get sent off to training. So I got a job. And then on the way to work, not too long into it, maybe a couple months, maybe not even 2 months, I got hit by a car. and I got really messed up. I had a brain injury and nasty shoulder and knee injury. My back is a little bit messed up from that too. You know, you get hit by a car, a lot of things go wrong. Don't recommend it. 100% discourage anyone from ever having to have that experience. During the recovery with the brain injury, there was no zazen. It wasn't going to happen. I experienced depression, sort of a dissociative kind of weird depression that a later doctor in Chicago then told me, oh yeah, definitely a brain injury kind of thing. It took me like 3 or 4 years for that dark cloud to kind of dissipate and to really feel like I could return wholehearted to practicing zazen. Well, all the time I still had that point in my life that, yeah, my spiritual practice and study is central, even if that wasn't my vocation. While I was injured, I had to leave the temple, and the abbot told me if I leave, coming back through the gate would be much more difficult than just staying. And I didn't understand what he meant at the time. I thought maybe, well, you know, him accepting me back would be more difficult because he'd be like, well, you know, your determination is now questionable. And that may be true, but I think in a more profound way, it was time. You just get older, and jumping through the gate to become a monk gets harder. And it did get harder. So I just gave up. I just threw it away. I said that I guess this lifetime, even though I don't really personally believe in reincarnation, life after life, I recognized that maybe in this lifetime I'm just not going to be a monk. That doesn't mean I can't do zazen. That doesn't mean I can't study the Dharma and be a passionate Buddhist-y person. But it just meant no monk. And I found myself, a friend helped me get a job working with children with special needs. And wow, purpose. That was one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Because it gave me an opportunity to learn from children, and particularly children who don't have the same conventional relationship with the world that neurotypical children or neurotypical people do. And there's profound wisdom to be found in that, and profound compassion. You don't know what you're capable of until you have to just forgive first and act after, immediately after, like immediately. Just complete, you are how you are, and I just, you know, you're working in a school, you can't say I love you, but you love the children. You can't not. Especially when you work with them that much and so closely and intimately, and taking care of them, their every human bodily need. Sometimes their bodily needs are being sprayed on you and thrown at you. And you have to love. If you don't love them, I don't think you can keep doing that work, is what I think. But I learned something really profound then, and fate then smiled on me after that, and I got asked to go back to Chicago to work with a teacher in a kindergarten, a really wonderful progressive kindergarten, where I connected with the boss, the head of early childhood, who was also a Buddhist, is also a Buddhist, and I recognized integrity and a real true sense of compassion in that person, in her. And she's also a person with an amazing history, and I will sing her praises and tell everyone of her, how she inspires me until the day I die, because she is one of the, like that Kiwi on the ship, she is one of the turning points in my life. When she retired, which was a little faster than I thought, I spent 3 years teaching there and playing music again, playing with the really good groups like the Chicago Jazz Orchestra, playing lead trumpet. Ooh, yeah, it was fun. The fun ended when she was retiring because I didn't like the person who was going to replace her. But I had to keep going with my life, and I asked her, because I really dearly respected her, And we practiced Zazen together almost every day before work. And we taught the children how to do meditation, which was a really fun thing and an enlightening experience. That's a buzzword. And she said, why don't you do the thing that you've always wanted to do, but you keep making excuses not to do? And I thought about it for a few days. Well, it didn't take long to really know what I needed to do, which was save up my money in the few months before she retired, and then move to Japan. Leave this really great job, this wonderful position, which could have been a career unto itself. Humble as a kindergarten teacher's assistant. I love that teacher. I could work with her for 2 decades, 3 decades, and never get tired of sharing that work. But yeah, I had to go to Japan, which leads me to here. I moved here to Japan. And in Japan, I picked up a hobby. Ho ho! It means it's an announcement. I have no idea what she's saying. It's too echoey. They're going to do something. Okonau means do something. Some kind of something or other. Words I don't know. There's still lots of words I don't know in this country. I think it means go home. Whatever. Can you still hear me? I hope you can still hear me. So, I moved here to Japan and I started wandering around to temples immediately. As soon as I got off the plane, I didn't speak any Japanese. I couldn't read any of the Chinese characters called kanji. I couldn't do anything. But I knew I liked temples. I wanted to be closer to Dogen and the Zen thing. And so what are we going to do? We're going to go to temples. Everywhere I went, I just found one on the way and I would go and visit. And I probably went to 200 or so. Not just Zen temples. I love the Pure Land temples too. And eventually I met a monk who was kind enough, brave enough to just talk to me. And he also was crazy enough to open his doors and let me come in and sit Zazen in his temple, which was really great. Then, after just being purely determined and, being a good visitor, cleaning up after myself and all that, taking care of, my space in there, sometimes cleaning the temple or cleaning the toilets when he wasn't looking. He eventually basically offered to give me ordination because he thought that I wanted to be a monk, even though I didn't ask, because I had given up. I just dropped it off. All I wanted to do was Zazen. And then that person became my master, and well, that's a short and brisk way of saying that's how I became a monk. Let's have a little recap. Let's see if I can put this together. So I'm going to read my little list here. So at 9 years old, I experienced Zazen, but I didn't have a word for it. Everyone thought I was weird, but stillness and just being still revealed something really profound. That was the source point. Spontaneous doing Zazen. What a weird kid. 10 years old, I saw monks in Malaysia, and I learned to play the trumpet, and the trumpet set me off on a wonderful adventure as a musician, which gave me the chance to study music, which gave me the chance to have a job, which gave me the chance to meet a wonderful Kiwi dancer who pointed at me. He pointed me at me and about paying attention through yoga and body awareness, and then turned me into a barefoot runner. He didn't turn me into a barefoot runner. What he pointed at was, oh yeah, I probably should have been a barefoot runner, so I'm still a barefoot runner. Run a couple marathons like that. And then my cousin introduced me to Buddhism, even though I didn't think it was a good idea. I thought it was too cliche. She turned out to be very right. I met some Theravada monks. I experienced some meditation. I also read a book by Red Pine called The Monk's White Clouds. You should check that out. That's pretty inspiring. While I was playing music on Broadway in Chicago with a drummer who gave me this book, and that really turned me on to the idea of, like, Oh, maybe I'm a hermit that lives in society. Yeah. I got poor, went to graduate school, found a Zen temple, got really, really close to the master, almost became a monk, got injured, got hit by a car. Fate put me in the hands of children, becoming a teacher's assistant in a special ed classroom. And then that connected me to a really good job back in Chicago where I could play more music for more money, a better sustainable living, where I was a kindergarten teacher for a couple of years. And then my beloved boss retired and I moved to Japan. I wandered around for a few years, did a lot of Zazen, and then someone decided to make me a monk, and that's my master. You'll see him in another video. I already discussed showing up in a video on a topic that will be very interesting. I think none of the other Zen teachers on the internet are touching. So I'm excited to share with you what will happen in the near-ish future. Goodness, the production is going to be a pain in the rumpus, but I'm going to go for it. Thank you for listening. That's the story about me. It's long. I'm sorry. Read the AI summary description. That probably puts it together better than even I can. Anyway, if you find my story inspiring, comment in the comments down below or send me an email at askeshin@gmail.com. And I'll see you in the next one.